and such.
And there the automatic is a good feature.
Oh, yeah, all you got to do is just, you know, kind of point and shoot. It focuses, does everything. I never have to make any decisions.
Good shooting, Leslie.
Well, thanks.
No, you, too, can enjoy this man's efforts by becoming a member of NHRA and receiving National Dragster every week and the many other benefits. And if you join right now, they'll even include a free copy of the multi-award-winning home video, Decade of Thrill. So call right now and become part of the world's largest motorsports sanctioning body.
I just wonder, is that picture of Steve going to make the pages of the National Dragster? Well, you better subscribe to find out. In the far lane of the track, Joe Lapone in his Chevrolet. In the near lane, it is Frank Iaconio and his Pontiac. Lapone got here by virtue of using an Iaconio engine, but that's long gone. That's Lee Dean's motor under the hood at this point.
Look how fast Joe Lapone is backing up. Iaconio, as we saw before, likes to move up and stage in a hurry. Look at Lapone. He may beat him into the beams. They're already on the starting line, both cars together. And I think it surprised Iaconio.
I do too. Look at Joe Lapone. He left the starting line. Iaconio did not. Got caught with his RPMs down. And Lapone into the finals. The crew's coming over to talk to starter Buster Couch. He says Lapone's the winner. If you're going to live by the sword, you better be prepared to watch it come swishing through the air. And that's just what happened to Frank Iaconio. He had come into the beams in stage, but so had Lapone right alongside of him. When all four lights are lit at the top of the tree, it's race time. It may be a straight line racetrack, but there's a lot of twists that can get you to the final round. Here's the second pair of our semifinals. In the near lane, it's Morgan's Oldsmobile challenging the quicker Dodge of Darrell Alderman. Let's go to the far end. Steve's with Joe.
You moved up in stage like a man in a great big hurry, Joe.
Well, I have to give Frank Iaconio a lot of credit. I used his engine the first 2 rounds of this race, and I ended up having lane choice against him. So what we did was we took his engine out and put Lee Dean's engine in. That's why we were thrashing so bad. Frank likes to go up there and put both lights on. I knew that I was down on performance. Not anything against Lee's motor, but Frankie's built an excellent motor right now, so I just had to do what I had to do. I put both lights on against him, put on a limiter, and off we went, and I guess he just wasn't ready.
Apparently not. Now, the last time you went into a final round, you had adopted a Vince Lombardi philosophy to pump yourself up. What about this one?
We're ready for it now. We're on Vince Lombardi time again. We're back. It took us a little while. We lost our way, but we're back again.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Lapone now headed to the final round of the Heartland Nationals on the starting line. One of these 2 cars will be his competitor. In the far lane is Alderman, near lane is Morgan. Staging carefully, Morgan the last to stage. And the first to leave, a red light. He left the starting line too soon. Automatic disqualification. And Darrell Alderman's Dodge for the 2nd time this year in the final. 7.48 seconds. His speed 181. He will have the choice of lanes as he comes to the finals to face the Chevrolet of Joe Lapone. When we come back to Heartland Park, Topeka, it's time for funny car racing. Back at Heartland Park, Topeka, I'm Dave McClelland along with Steve Evans and Ed McCulloch and John Force, getting ready for their semi-final round of action in Funny Car Eliminator. Meantime, back in these huge pit areas, there's lots of work going on in Joe Lapone's pits. Steve?
I haven't seen musical motors in pro stocks like this maybe ever. What's going on, Joe Lapone?
We had the misfortune of breaking both my engines here. To run first round, I talked to Frank Iaconio, and he was trying to sell one of his engines and having a hard time getting it basically in other people's cars, so we put it in my car, and we were 2nd fastest last qualifying round. So then starts the scenario, what do we do on race day? So Frank said I could rent the engine. We all went along, that was fine. I rented it, we came up with an agreed price, made 2 runs. Well, now coming to the semifinals, I have to run Frank Iaconio.
He wants it back.
Not a good thing to beat him with his own engine. So I didn't even ask. We took that out. And Gil Davis from Lee Dean's camp said we can run his engine. So after that round, when Bruce lost, Frankie won, stopped up at that trailer. At that point, Gil Davis, my crew, people from the Scribner crew, people from the Ekman and Orndorff crew, the Pennzoil people, David Belli was there, and it was a community effort to get that engine in time to run Frank. We were fortunate enough to get by Frank.
Now Frank's motor.
So now we decided, well, Frank's motor might be a little bit better, but I'm pretty sure it is better from what the last run showed. Nothing against Lee Dean. So now we're going to put that back in for the final. and we feel we have a real good chance of winning this race right now with this engine.
Good thing there's no more rounds.
Yeah, we're out of engines and people to borrow them from.
Steve, I've never heard a more diplomatic description of the necessary moves made by Joe Lapone Jr. Moving into the staging beams now, lighting the last 2 bulbs on the top of the tree. Overstaging, in fact, is John Force. Alongside of him, Ed McClelland. Now set. Force did not mean the deep stage there. That was an accident on his part. Look at this. And a tremendous run by McCulloch puts him into the final. 5.49 seconds, his speed 268 miles an hour. The losing time for Force, a quicker 5:47. As we look in replay, let's watch what happened.
I think when that car deep staged in the near lane, it bothered John Force's concentration. He was a little late off the mark, and McCulloch beat him with a slower lapse time. He did not deep stage on purpose.
By the time they had reached mid-track, McCulloch had his margin of victory, nearly a car length. He held it to the finish. Steve?
Ed, you knew you were in a drag race that time. Just 2 1/100ths difference, and actually you had the slower lapse time.
Well, I actually didn't see John until just before the lights, and then I could see his fender out there, you know. But, you know, it's just one of those drag races, you know.
Can a 5:49 win in the final, do you think?
I don't think so. Probably 49's not even going to get lane choice, but we're going to race him.
All right. Great racer, Ed McCulloch.
Mark Oswald does not have to contend with an opponent except the clock. He is on a single run. The rules call for each car in competition to make the same number of runs or rounds of elimination. Oswald knows what he has to do. He has been watching the race in front of him. He knows that Ed McCulloch has only run a 5:49. If he wants the lane choice, he's got to run quicker than that. Staging carefully. Oswald in the Candies and Hughes car out of South Louisiana on this single, moving him into the final. And he strikes the tires just a few 100 feet off the starting line. He did not want to do that. If Oswald was using this single run as a test to find the combination for the final round, that was not it. Mark Oswald, with a very slow 9:31, gives away the lane choice to Ed McCulloch when they come back to meet in the final round of Funny Car at the inaugural AC Delco, Heartland National. Meantime, back in the top fuel pit area, that is the crew chief and husband of Shirley Muldowney, Ron Tobler, putting the finishing touches on that side of the race engine. They're getting it set for the finals against Dick LaHaye.
Fit any opening without disturbing
Being on Dick LaHaye's dragster, getting it ready for the final. They may not enjoy all the luxuries of a garage-type building, but these massive 18-wheelers can carry all the tools and parts necessary. Earlier, Steve had a chance to check in on the newest operation.
Boy, with a rig like this, it's got to be the latest megabuck funny car or top fuel dragster operation, right? No, not exactly. This is Jim Hale's rig from Van Buren, Arkansas, the most impressive sportsman lash-up we've seen since the 60s and the days of Sox and Martin. Now, a pair of Chrysler Corporation Superstockers. This is a Superstock D-modified, driven by Jim himself. This is a Plymouth Sundance. Also, the team car, driven by S.E. Buchanan, is a Dodge Daytona. Now, if you go down to the dealer and open the hood on a Plymouth Sundance, you're going to find a little bitty 4-cylinder motor mounted transversely, front-wheel drive. NHRA Superstock rules, as restrictive as they are, allow them to install V8 motors in these front-wheel drive cars so that not everything going down the racetrack looks like it's 15 years old. The rules, however, as far as the engine preparation are still very, very stiff, and the certification and inspection is very rigorous. Now, S.E. Buchanan, he survived in round one. Poor Jim Hill here, he was eliminated. To find out how S.E. did throughout the afternoon and to find out who won all of the sportsman eliminators, here again is Dave McClelland.
Steve Buchanan was eliminated by Bill Ringer in round number 3, and then Ringer was eventually eliminated by this man, Al Kuehl. He then faced Dwight Sutherland in his Corvette in the final round of Superstock Eliminator. This is handicap racing. Kuehl got an actual head start off the starting line. If all worked well, they were to meet right at the finish line, and they did, with Kuehl taking the win by just a fraction of an inch. He's the champion in Super Stock Eliminator. The top alcohol dragster champ, Tom Conway. Pat Austin won his 8th race of the year in alcohol funny car. David Rampy, the competition eliminator champion. Al Corda in stock eliminator. Craig McCoy in super gas. The super comp champ, Robert Turner. And John Mafaro clinched the Castrol Pro Stock Motorcycle Series Championship with his win at Heartland Park, Topeka.
It is time now for the Pro Stock final round. That man, Joe Lapone, and his Chevy Beretta. Wait a minute, you know what's happening here? Darrell Alderman in the Dodge had lane choice. He has changed his mind, and that is his prerogative. Right up until the time they start those engines, he can pick his lane. And David, while we were gone, a sportsman car hit the wall in that right-hand or near lane, and apparently that spooked Alderman. He doesn't want it.
Steve, this is really a psychological move because there's nothing wrong with the lane, even though Jackie Stidham did just glance off the guardrail. There's no debris and certainly no oil on the track, but Alderman puts Lapone over there and possibly puts the thought in his head, maybe the lane's not quite as good as the one that I'm sitting in.
I tell you what, instead of a good crew chief, I think what you need if you run a Pro Stocker is an excellent psychiatrist on tour with you.
I assure you that anybody that runs against Joe Lapone needs one. Look what he did to the mind of Frank Iaconio in the semifinals. There's one man on this track that watches all the staging battles. That's the chief starter. Earlier, Steve talked with him.
David, I'm with Buster Couch right on the starting line just before the finals. And Buster, you know the idiosyncrasies of these drivers better than anybody else. How do you see the finals, let's say, between Joe Lapone and Alderman?
Well, Lapone's going to be trying to take advantage of every way he can if you know how he drives. Alderman likes to come on up and put his light on after he does his burnout, but he don't like to stage first. He likes to be the last one to stage. So you never know how Lapone's going to do if you've been noticing that. He allowed to come on and put both lights on first, or he allowed to sit there. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do.
Oswald and McCullough in funny car.
Well, I'm not going to predict. It's going to be one heck of a race. They both do good.
And they're fair stagers usually.
They're fair stagers. They don't play games. They do their thing.
In top fuel, LaHaye usually likes to stage last. He'll press Shirley on that.
He does, but I don't think that bothers Shirley. I don't think it matters to her when she stages first or last. She just does her thing and concentrates and does the same thing over and over. It'll be a heck of a race.
And 3 good starts.
There you go. I hope so.
And 3 great races kicking off the finals here at the AC Delco Heartland Nationals. It is Pro Stock Eliminator. Joe Lapone in the near lane. He's got a Chevrolet. These cars limited to 500 cubic inches, 2 4-barrel carburetors, running on racing gasoline.
The only thing that may be worn out on Joe Lapone's Beretta are the motor mounts. We've told that story. So again, at least he's got a motor here that he's familiar with. He ran it in the earlier rounds. Darrell Alderman, well, I think he's got a bit of an edge here, David.
Alderman and Lapone scratching their way to the finish line. It is Alderman winning his 2nd race of the year. The Dodge running a 7:45 and 184 miles an hour. The losing time of 7:47 for Lapone, but it was all won right on the starting line. The race was over the minute the clutch dropped on the Dodge of Darrell Alderman. He had 0.04 of a second advantage over Lapone. By the time he got to the finish line, he had added 2 more hundredths of a second based upon the elapsed time difference.